Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.
We're diving into a story that is both fascinating and deeply unsettling.
Yeah.
It's kind of a story that sits at the intersection of cutting-edge AI, copyright law, and a young whistleblower's tragic end.
Right.
We're trying to help you understand these complex issues.
Yeah.
And the role of Bolaji,
Right.
who was a former OpenAI researcher,
Right.
who was found dead in his San Francisco apartment just weeks after publicly raising concerns about some of OpenAI's practices.
What makes Bolaji's story particularly compelling is that he wasn't just a critic on the outside.
Right.
He was really deeply embedded in the world of AI, working at OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, for nearly 4 years.
And for the last year and a half of his time there, he was actually involved in developing ChatGPT. So he had a front row seat to the creation of this groundbreaking technology.
Yeah.
But then something shifted. He became disillusioned, troubled by what he saw happening behind the scenes.
That's right. Bolaji's concerns centered around OpenAI's use of copyrighted material to train its AI systems, specifically ChatGPT. He started to believe that this practice was not only ethically questionable, but potentially illegal.
Now, you might be wondering what exactly was Bolaji alleging.
Right.
To understand that, we need to delve a little deeper into how AI systems like ChatGPT are built.
Essentially, these systems are trained on massive amounts of data, including text, code, images, and even music. This data helps the AI learn patterns and relationships, allowing it to generate human-quality text, translate languages, write different kinds of creative content, and answer your questions in an informative way.
And Bolaji's concern was that a lot of this training data was copyrighted material that OpenAI was using without permission. He argued that by creating systems that could mimic human creativity, OpenAI was essentially devaluing the work of original creators, potentially even violating their copyright.
Exactly. He saw ChatGPT and similar technologies as potential substitutes for the work of artists, writers, musicians, and other creators who rely on copyright to protect their livelihoods.
So he decided to go public with his concerns. He gave an interview to the New York Times. That's a publication that's currently suing OpenAI over copyright infringement. He also shared his views on X, formerly Twitter, and wrote a detailed explanation on his personal website.
His actions were a direct challenge to OpenAI.
Yeah?
A powerful company with a lot at stake. It was a bold move, and it thrust Bolaji into the spotlight of a growing debate about the ethics and legality of AI development.
And then, tragically, just weeks after speaking out, Bolaji was found dead in his apartment. The San Francisco medical examiner ruled his death a suicide, and police said there was no evidence of foul play. It's impossible to know for sure what was going through his mind in those final days, but his death cast a long shadow over the whole conversation about AI and its potential impact.
It certainly raises questions about the pressures faced by whistleblowers, especially in the fast-paced and often secretive world of tech, and it forces us to confront the potential human cost of technological advancement.
It's a stark reminder that these aren't just abstract debates about lines of code or legal battles over copyright. They have real-world consequences for real people.
Now, to understand the full weight of Bolaji's allegations, we need to take a closer look at OpenAI's response to his claims and the broader issue of copyright in the age of AI. OpenAI's defense boils down to the argument that its AI models like ChatGPT learn in a way that's analogous to human learning.
Okay.
They claim that just like we humans build upon existing knowledge and ideas, their AI systems learn by analyzing and processing vast amounts of data, including copyrighted material.
Right.
This, they argue, falls under the fair use provisions of copyright law.
So for those of us who aren't legal experts, can you unpack this fair use concept a bit? What exactly does it mean in the context of copyright law?
Fair use is a legal doctrine that permits limited use of copyrighted material without requiring permission from the rights holder.
Right.
It's essentially a defense against claims of copyright infringement. There are 4 factors that courts typically consider when determining if something qualifies as fair use.
Okay, let's break those down. What are those 4 factors?
The first factor is the purpose and character of the use. So is the use for commercial purposes, like OpenAI's development of ChatGPT, or is it for nonprofit or educational purposes? The second factor looks at the nature of the copyrighted work itself.
Okay.
For example, Using a factual work like a news article might be considered more fair use than using a highly creative work like a novel or a song.
That makes sense. So what are the other two factors?
The third factor examines the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. Did you use a small snippet or a significant portion of the work? And finally, the fourth factor considers the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. In other words, does your use harm the original creator's ability to profit from their work?
This is where it gets interesting in the context of AI. If a system like ChatGPT can generate content that's essentially indistinguishable from human-created content,
Yeah.
wouldn't that directly impact the market for that original work?
That's exactly the argument that many critics, including Bolaji, were making.
Right.
They contend that even if OpenAI's use of copyrighted material falls under fair use for training purposes, the output of systems like ChatGPT, which can create new content based on that training data, could directly compete with and potentially devalue the work of original creators.
So OpenAI is essentially arguing that they're just teaching their AI to learn like humans, while critics are saying that the end result is essentially a form of high-tech plagiarism that could undermine the entire creative industry.
That's a pretty accurate summation of the two sides of this debate.
And the courts are going to have to decide who's right. These cases against OpenAI could set a major precedent for how we regulate AI development and its impact on copyright law in the years to come.
Absolutely. The outcomes of these legal battles will have far-reaching consequences,
Right.
not just for OpenAI, but for the entire field of AI. They could determine how AI systems are trained in the future, what limitations are placed on the use of copyrighted material, and ultimately how we balance the rights of creators with the advancement of technology.
It's a truly pivotal moment. But beyond the legal questions, there's also a much broader ethical dimension to this story.
Right, Balaji's story raises some fundamental questions about the very nature of creativity and what it means in a world where AI can seemingly replicate it. If a machine can write a poem or compose a song that's indistinguishable from something created by a human, does it have the same artistic value? Does it hold the same meaning?
These are questions that philosophers and artists have been debating for centuries, but AI is bringing them to the forefront in a whole new way.
And it forces us to consider what constitutes originality in the age of AI.
Right.
If an AI system can analyze and synthesize vast amounts of data, including every poem ever written, and then generate a new poem that adheres to all the rules of form and style, is that poem truly original, or is it simply a sophisticated imitation?
It's mind-boggling to think about. And for those who rely on creative work for their livelihood, it's not just a philosophical question.
Right.
It's a question of economic survival.
Exactly. We've already seen how automation has impacted manufacturing and other industries, and it's not hard to imagine a future where AI could displace writers, musicians, artists, and even software developers.
It's a sobering thought. But does that mean we should just stop developing AI altogether?
I don't think that's a realistic or even desirable solution.
Right.
AI has the potential to revolutionize countless fields,
Yeah.
from healthcare to education to environmental protection. The challenge is to find a way to harness its power for good while mitigating the potential harms, including its impact on creative industries.
So how do we strike that balance?
Perhaps we need to reframe our understanding of creativity itself.
Okay.
Maybe it's not just about the end product,
Right.
but also about the process, the intention, the human experience behind the creation.
I like that idea. It's not about seeing AI as a threat, but rather as a collaborator, a partner in the creative process.
Exactly. AI can be a tool that helps us explore new possibility,
Right.
that pushes the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that human creativity is constantly evolving. We've always used tools to augment our creative abilities, from the paintbrush to the printing press to the computer.
AI is just the latest tool in that long line of innovation.
Yeah.
And who knows what incredible new forms of art and expression might emerge from this collaboration between humans and machines.
Right.
It's an exciting prospect, but it also comes with inherent risks.
Of course, we need to be vigilant about ensuring that AI is developed and used in ways that benefit all of humanity, not just a select few.
Right.
And we need to be mindful of the potential for bias and discrimination in AI systems.
That's a critical point. AI systems are trained on data that reflects the biases of the real world.
Right.
And if we're not careful, those biases can be amplified and perpetuated in the outputs of those systems.
We've already seen examples of this happening, with AI systems exhibiting racial and gender bias in areas like facial recognition and loan applications.
Yeah.
It's a serious concern that we need to address head-on.
So, as we continue to explore the possibilities of AI, it's crucial that we do so with a deep understanding of the ethical implications and a commitment to fairness and inclusivity.
We need to think critically about the data that's used to train AI systems, the algorithms that drive those systems, and the potential impact of those systems on individuals and society as a whole.
This brings us back to Bolaji and his tragic story.
Yeah.
He was clearly wrestling with these very questions, grappling with the potential consequences of unchecked AI development.
His decision to speak out, to blow the whistle on what he perceived as unethical practices, was a courageous act. And it highlights the importance of transparency and accountability in the field of AI.
We need more people like Bolaji who are willing to ask tough questions and challenge the status quo.
Absolutely. We need to create a culture where whistleblowers are protected, where ethical concerns are taken seriously, and where the development of AI is guided by a strong moral compass.
That's a powerful message. So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I want to shift our focus to the future. What does the future hold for AI and creativity? How do we navigate this uncharted territory in a way that benefits both creators and society as a whole?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I don't think anyone has all the answers. But we can explore some potential scenarios, some possible pathways forward. One possibility is that AI becomes so sophisticated that it essentially replaces human creativity in many fields.
So you're saying we could end up in a world where algorithms are writing the best-selling novels, composing the hit songs, and creating the blockbuster movies.
It's not entirely implausible. AI is already capable of generating incredibly impressive creative output. And as the technology continues to advance, it's conceivable that it could surpass human capabilities in certain areas.
That's a pretty bleak outlook for human artists and creators.
It certainly raises concerns about the future of creative work, but it's also possible that AI could augment and enhance human creativity rather than replacing it altogether.
So instead of seeing AI as a competitor, we could view it as a collaborator, a tool that helps us unlock new levels of creativity and innovation.
Exactly. Imagine a world where writers use AI to brainstorm ideas, overcome writer's block, or even generate different versions of a scene. Or where musicians use AI to experiment with new sounds and melodies. AI could become a kind of creative partner, freeing us from tedious tasks and allowing us to focus on the most inspired aspects of the creative process.
That's a much more optimistic vision, but it still requires us to grapple with some fundamental questions about the nature of creativity and the role of AI in our lives.
Right. We need to be having conversations about what we value in creative works. Is it the originality, the emotional impact, the technical skill? How do those values translate to a world where AI is playing an increasingly significant role in the creative process?
These are tough questions, and there are no easy answers.
No, there aren't. But I think it's crucial that we start asking these questions now, while the technology is still relatively young. We have an opportunity to shape the future of AI and its impact on creativity. We can choose to create a world where AI empowers human creators, where it expands the possibilities of artistic expression, and where it benefits society as a whole.
It's an exciting and potentially transformative time, but it's also a time for caution and critical reflection.
We need to be mindful of the potential risks and challenges that come with this technology. We need to be thinking about the ethical implications, the potential for bias, and the economic impact on creative industries.
We need to be having conversations about regulation, about transparency, about accountability.
And most importantly, we need to be having these conversations together as a society. This isn't just a matter for tech experts or policymakers to decide. It's something that affects all of us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of AI, copyright, and the tragic story of Suchir Bolaji, I want to leave you with a final thought. The future of AI and creativity is not predetermined. It's something that we are actively shaping through the choices we make, the conversations we have, and the actions we take.
Bolaji's story is a reminder that technological progress is not without its costs. It's a reminder that we need to be vigilant, that we need to be asking tough questions, and that we need to be advocating for a future where AI serves humanity, not the other way around.
Let's strive to create a world where AI empowers creativity, fosters innovation, and benefits all of humankind. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.